the Hills project, 400 acres abutting the Shinnecock Bay.
Right. So here we have the last undeveloped privately held parcel of the Central Suffolk Pine Barrens, which many of us have spent many years trying to protect. It is not zoned for the purpose that it's being applied for. It is currently zoned for 1 unit of residential development for every 5 acres, and 65 to 70% of that would have to be set aside as protected land. There's a unique, well, not totally unique, but there is a zoning provision in the town of Southampton that allows you to come in sort of with whatever you think is a good idea and provide a series of what are called community benefits to get that approved. So this project now has come in with 100 units of residential development plus a championship golf course plus a giant clubhouse, and it's an exclusive resort community being put forward by a very large and successful development company. And the irony of this piece of property is that while it is the largest piece of contiguous undeveloped pine barrens left in this area, it also drains into one of the worst areas of western Shinnecock Bay, meaning that the water that flows underneath that piece of property is critical to the survival of that western bay. The water under that property is clean, and it makes up for water on the other sides of that property, which are not so clean. And so this project is come in under this Planned Development District statute. Many of us have gone to the town and said, look, this whole statute doesn't make sense anymore. Whatever you thought you were going to get out of this, it's not working. We need to have a do-over, repeal that. I think there is a new administration and new board members in Southampton town, and I think they've heard that message. But the threat's very real that large piece could go as something other than a very low-density residential development. And that in fairness, the developers have said, we will do things to make sure that there's not a water quality problem. All I can tell you is that anytime you do something, the unintended consequences usually far outweigh the consequences that you knew about.
Right.
And that's not anybody's fault. It just seems to be the nature of things.
So it's, even if they did everything that they said they were going to, you still have that open space as really a source for our drinking water. And if you build on top of it.
Yeah, it's absolutely a filter for our drinking water. It has been the subject of preservation efforts for more than a decade. Suffolk County and the town have both sought to buy the property. We want to continue to urge that outcome and work with the developer if there's any way to make that happen, because it's a filter. It's a sand filter helping those western bays. The other thing is that the habitat on this property, some of the planned development districts that went on in Southampton were on pieces of property that were already obliterated with some other kind of development. And these things came in, and you could argue that it was a decent trade-off because you got something other than what you had.
Right.
This piece of property doesn't have that condition. This is an undeveloped piece of pine barrens, so that pine barrens habitat is largely intact throughout the site. And this would radically alter that. And the habitat is also of value, not just the water that goes through that habitat into the ground, because there are unique species and it's a unique ecosystem here on Long Island that many people have fought for many years to protect. So it is, and it's interesting because this is at the western exterior of the east end, this project, and Plum Island is at the northeastern tip. So we have two of the largest projects that we've ever confronted happening simultaneously. One on each end of the east end, and so it's a challenge. But again, I'm very pleased to say that people have risen up and stood up for the cause of conservation. Local civic organizations, community groups, not just environmental guys, and I think so long as that happens, we have our best chance at seeing a preservation outcome in both of those pieces.